achieve our climate goals. They manage resource industries, electrical systems, and building codes, among other things. So what we wanted to do was to include in the assessment reports a summary of what provincial governments are doing to meet national emissions targets. Again, Madam Speaker, I'm just going to have to ask the honourable member to continue after the period provided for oral questions. Thank you.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For over 27 years, Ray Bowie has dedicated her career to public service and helping Canadians. Over the years, Ray has worked for many members of Parliament, both at the provincial and the federal levels. She has mentored numerous staff and provided outstanding service to constituents in several ridings. Ray has also been an exemplary community member through her volunteer service across York Region, a friend to all of us, a proud mother and a proud grandmother. Her support for the residents of Newmarket Aurora throughout this pandemic has not been unnoticed. Ray has been an invaluable member of our team, and we will miss her. On behalf of our team and all of those who have had the pleasure to work with you, congratulations, Ray, on your well-deserved retirement.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Madam Speaker, today as we celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day, I would like to recognize the Siksika Nation's generous donation of vaccines to the Deshmish Culture Centre in Calgary for their vaccine drive. Through the tireless efforts led by President Amanpreet Singh Gill and the entire Executive Committee, the Deshmish Culture Centre serves the community at large in Calgary through SEVA and many community initiatives. This is what Canada is about. When the South Asian community needed help to tackle COVID-19, it was our Indigenous brothers and sisters who stood up and came to help. During this pandemic, we must remember that we are all in this together. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, quote, "Somewhere along the way, we must learn that there is nothing greater than to do something for others," close quote. Madam Speaker, we are stronger together, and may God truly keep this beautiful land strong and free.
For Toronto Danforth.
Madam Speaker, this year the Withrow Park Farmers Market celebrates its 15th anniversary. Started as a pilot project, it came together through the hard work and dedication of volunteers. Roberta was at the heart of it all. She could be found every Saturday at the market and working throughout the week to make it a success. The market isn't just about food. It's about projects like Zero Waste Initiative that move people beyond single-use plastics by lending out plates, cups, and cutlery to use for market foods. And it's about building community. I used to organize a stone soup at the fire pit. Community members would pick up food at the market, and together we would make a big pot of soup to share while telling stories around the fire. Thank you to Chantal, the market manager, Eleanor, Janet, Lanrick, Estelle, and Mary on the board of directors, and all of the amazing volunteers who make the Withrow Park Farmers Market a great part of our community.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Madam Speaker, as we speak, seriously ill people are facing unacceptable financial concerns. They wonder if they'll be able to support their families while they heal. They are caught in this dilemma because EI leaves them stranded in the middle of their recovery when they could use 50 weeks of special sickness benefits. Madam Speaker, Bill C-265 was unanimously supported by the Parliamentary Committee. People who are ill need compassion and caring, not to be abandoned. And that is why the House is calling for an increase in EI sickness benefits to 50 weeks. All we're missing is royal recommendation from the Liberal government. It's time to listen to the wishes of parliamentarians and give Emily Sonfaçon's bill a royal recommendation so that sick workers are never left behind. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, on the occasion of the third Men Who Stand Out ceremony, instituted 4 years ago in Bourassa, I have the honour of honouring 6 leaders of organizations and citizens whose efforts make life more pleasant in the riding. This ceremony took place on Father's Day, and I gave certificates and a medal for meritorious service. And in doing so, I'd like to congratulate François Bérard, Antonio Benabi, Omar Missioun, Will Prosper, Martin Rodrigue, and José Trottier.
Je suis... Oh my God, mais c'est un bruit. Excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker? I had an IT issue. I apologize. Can you hear me?
On vous entend?
Yes, we can hear you. This happens to me as well often. So I would ask the Honourable Member for Bourassa to repeat his statement so that we can all hear what he has to say. Please start again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the occasion of the third Men Who Stand Out ceremony in Bourassa, I would like to honor 6 leaders of organizations and citizens whose efforts make life more pleasant in my riding. This ceremony, which took place on Father's Day, I awarded a merit certificate and decorated these men with the Bourassa Medal for Meritorious Service. I would like to congratulate François Bérard, Antonio Bernabi, Omar Missioun, Will Prosper, Martin Rodrigue, and José Trottier. Mr. Speaker, I want to underscore the achievements of these men in my riding and to introduce them to the House of Commons. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, close to 200 well-wishers lined the streets leading to the home of Edwin Ng as he returned home earlier this month. Ng, a 48-year-old husband, father, grandfather, and dedicated personal support worker, contracted COVID-19 when an outbreak devastated Roberta Place Long-Term Care Center in January. He spent almost 5 months in hospital and underwent a double lung transplant. He was determined to survive, and with support from his wife Samantha, family, friends, community, and their faith in God, Edwin never gave up hope. Our community of Barrie Innisfil is also sending its love and support to Troy Scott, owner of the Foodland in Stroud, who was recently hospitalized, facing a similar battle as Edwin did after contracting COVID. In Barrie Innisfil and communities across Canada, our resiliency and in many cases our faith has been tested with stories like Edwin and Troy. And as we approach Canada Day, inspired by these stories of resilience, let them serve as a reminder that as a nation, Canada has faced and overcome great challenges during our history when we are united, determined, compassionate, and respectful. And we'll do so again, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. John Rothsay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2015, I've been advocating for more affordable housing for my riding of St. John Rothsay. Housing is a basic human right that should be available to all. And that's why, for the 5th consecutive budget, we're making significant new investments in housing. Budget 2021 proposes an additional $2.5 billion over 7 years in new funding. Notably, we are extending the highly successful Rapid Housing Initiative introduced by our government late last year with an additional investment of $1.5 billion in 2021-22. Last week, I had the pleasure of being joined by Minister Hussein to announce $1.3 million investment from the federal government to build the Unified St. John Housing Cooperative's Victoria Street building that includes 14 housing units, primarily intended for low-income women, including women with children. I want to thank all those involved in this project for all of their hard work and their commitment to providing safe and affordable housing for those who need it the most. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I just want to remind the honourable members that even during SO31s, they can't mention the name of someone in the chamber. Normally, we refer to them by their position or their riding. And on another note, I just want to offer a tip that's worked for me. I saw it happen to one member earlier. Always have a hard copy of whatever your statement is, even if you are using the screen. It just works out that much better as a backup. The honourable member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, gardens and gardening contribute to the development of our country, our cities, as well as the lives of Canadians in terms of health, quality of life, reconciliation, inclusion, and environmental challenges. We recognize 2022 as Canada's Year of the Garden, marking the centennial of Canada's ornamental horticulture sector on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association. The Year of the Garden, led by the Canadian Garden Council, will engage Canadian gardeners, families, students, and tourists with our garden culture and our history, the importance of public-private gardens, our urban landscapes, and invite Canadians to live the garden life. Year of the Garden 2022 will also contribute to the economic development of municipalities across this great nation. Members of all political parties have expressed support for the Year of the Garden 2022, along with members of Canada's garden family from all parts of this great country. As well, Mr. Speaker, Canada is the first country to celebrate the Year of the Garden. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Red Deer-Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, Ponoka lost a legend earlier this year when Mr. Henry Fleck passed away on January 22nd. A cowboy to the core, Henry had a love for all things horse-drawn and was best known as the stagecoach driver in the grand entry of the Ponoka Stampede, a role he held for more than 15 years. No doubt about it, Henry was a cowboy through and through and shared his passion with everyone. If he wasn't driving the stagecoach in the summer, he was pulling a sleigh in the winter. He rarely asked for money, just a little something to cover the cost of feeding the horses. And when the occasion called, Henry would honor fallen cowboys by bringing them to their final resting place in a horse-drawn hearse. He was proud to be from Central Alberta and would often tour with a stagecoach to other destinations to promote his hometown and the Ponoka Stampede and bring a sample of our Western hospitality to everyone. We were so blessed to have such an incredible ambassador for the cowboy way of life in our midst. Rest easy, Henry, as we tip our hats to you.
The honourable member for Outremont. Thank you. Small businesses in our neighbourhoods across the country are reopening their doors, Mr. Speaker, and the federal government is there to support them, just as we have been since the beginning of this pandemic. It was after several months of work with the Minister of Small Business that I participated in the announcement of our national Buy Local program. The federal government is partnering with chambers of commerce across the country, including the Quebec Federation of Chambers of Commerce, to promote our local entrepreneurs.
Small businesses are reopening across the country, and they need us. They need all Canadians to think of them and support them through their recovery. Earlier today, the Minister of Small Business and I announced a new federal program that will support shop local initiatives right across the country and encourage all Canadians to support their local entrepreneurs. Tens of millions of dollars in federal funding are coming to our main streets, Mr. Speaker, because our local small businesses and our neighborhood merchants are what makes our communities home. So get out there and shop local.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The people of Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes have been getting things done. Collaborating with the provincial and municipal governments, our community has been working together to bring federal funding for major projects we need in developing them from ideas into realities. Massive infrastructure projects like the County Road 43 expansion that will get us to work in the morning and home at night more safely. Recreation projects like the new arena in Prescott that will serve as a community hub, or affordable housing projects like the St. Vincent de Paul project in Brockville with affordable housing for seniors. I'll continue to fight to make sure that our community gets its fair share of dollars for these vital projects. We're going to call on the government for more funds for investments in Gananoque, Westport, Rideau Lakes, North Grenville, across the United Counties, and rec projects in Leeds and the Thousand Islands and Edwardsburg Cardinal. I want to thank my provincial and municipal counterparts and everyone in our community who has worked so hard on these projects. Together, we're building a better community.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the anti-Muslim terrorist attack in London, Ontario that took the lives of 4 members of the Afzal family devastated our nation, including my community of Oshawa and Durham Region. On Friday, June the 11th, Councillor Malia Shahid and Siraj Patel organized a peace walk and vigil to remember the lives lost, mourn for Fayez, a boy now left without his family, and take a stand against the hate that brought destruction to innocent Canadians just trying to live their lives. I want to thank Imam Shakir and Pastor Jason Levy for their words of comfort and challenge that evening. I was also thankful for the opportunity to visit the Islamic Center of Oshawa this past Friday to speak with the Imam and the congregation. The intense pain felt by those in London is shared in Oshawa. Oshawa has a strong history of celebrating our multicultural past, and we are committed to welcoming all cultures as part of our rich, shared, and respected future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
Mr. Speaker, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. It should be a day of celebration of culture and history, but I am filled with a tremendous amount of sadness and anger. When this institution talks about Indigenous communities, we often talk about resiliency. The federal institution talks about their record-breaking investments when $0.25 to $5 is a slap in the face. This place pats themselves on the back while denying Inuit access to safe, livable space that keeps them alive. I will continue to say this, Mr. Speaker. There is nothing to be proud of for Indigenous peoples in this institution. There is nothing for anyone to be patting themselves on the back. In fact, you should all feel extreme shame. I feel shame that Inuit are continuously being denied the right to live, the right to self-determination. Today, I applaud Inuit and Indigenous peoples. Without ourselves, our strength, and our resilience, we wouldn't be here. Matna, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi Bay James, Nunavut EU. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We cannot be satisfied with commemorations today as we mark National Indigenous Peoples Day, not after Kamloops. This must be a day of action and respectful collaboration from nation to nation, despite the legacy of residential schools. And that is why the Bloc has consulted the various assemblies representing First Nations and Inuit. These discussions lead us to ask the government today to provide the financial resources to identify the sites where the same horrors as Kamloops could have occurred. We're asking the government to force the religious communities involved in the residential schools to disclose their archives. And we would like to erect a residential school monument in Ottawa in collaboration with the Algonquin Nation. These actions will not erase generations of abuse, inhumanity, and shame, but it is a step forward, one that is recommended to us, the Indigenous peoples, and one that we must take together.
Member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, this pandemic has wreaked havoc on our economy and resulted in thousands of individuals being laid off, with the vast majority of those affected being women. While Canadian women have been struggling to make ends meet, this Liberal government, under this Prime Minister, decided to dole out millions to his rich friends and raise taxes on middle-class Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadian women can't afford this corruption and higher taxes any longer. However, there's hope for women. Canada's Conservatives have a 5-point plan to secure the future for Canadians, which includes recovering the million jobs lost, balance the budget over the next decade, and bring about more accountability so that we never see another WE scandal. For those that support higher taxes, job losses, and more scandals, Canadians have 4 parties to choose from: the Liberals, Bloc, NDP, and Greens. But for Canadian women who care about securing Canada's economic future, there's only one choice: Canada's Conservatives.
Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we honor the rich culture, traditions, and traditions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis across Canada. We also recognize that this National Indigenous Peoples Day is occurring at a time that is very difficult. Many of us are deeply heartbroken learning of the unmarked remains of children at the former residential school near Kamloops. This National Indigenous History Month is dedicated to missing children who went to residential school and never came home. It is dedicated to their families and to all residential school survivors. So while today we recognize the historic and ongoing contributions of Indigenous people in our country, we also take the time to educate ourselves about the hard truth
truths of our past, acknowledge the ongoing impacts of racist colonial policies, and the realities of current systemic racism. We encourage all Canadians to read or reread the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action, as they are a roadmap to reconciliation, a roadmap that is supported by Indigenous people, supported by our government, and hopefully all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, today we learned that 149 Liberal MPs have been using taxpayers' dollars to pay the Prime Minister's good buddy, Tom Pitfield, to help Liberals get elected. Mr. Pitfield isn't just the Prime Minister's friend, but his wife was the president of the Liberal Party, and they both were with the Prime Minister on that infamous billionaire island trip. Just a typical day in the life of these corrupt Liberals. But, Mr. Speaker, who instructed these Liberal MPs to use their taxpayer-funded budgets to pay the Prime Minister's friend to do political campaign work?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government believes strongly in the work that all members do for their constituents. It's very, very important work, and Canadians need to know their MPs are advocating for them. They also need to know MPs have the ability to keep up with all the files of the people they represent, and the technology that has been raised here today is used by our MPs to help manage their constituency casework. So Canadians are being served well by the MPs through this system.
Well, Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Liberal friends are certainly being served well. $200,000 for Katie Telford and Gerald Butt's moving expenses. $500 million for the Prime Minister's friends at We Charity, and now tens of thousands of taxpayers' dollars for another one of the Prime Minister's buddies. Mr. Speaker, it pays very well to be a friend of this corrupt Prime Minister. But Canadians cannot afford more of this unethical behaviour. So again, who in the government told 149 Liberal MPs to give taxpayers' money to Tom Pitfield, the Prime Minister's friend and colleague?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what Canadians can't afford anymore is this blockage from the Conservatives. We have very important bills ahead of us in the Parliament that needs to be voted on, and the Conservatives try to shut down Parliament. They've been filibustering. They didn't want to add additional hours so we can work, and we're ready to work for all Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And the Conservatives should stop playing their games and support us, support Canadians.
Well, Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, let's talk about the important work of Parliament. Today, wrong one, Mr. Speaker. In less than an hour, the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada will appear before the bar of this House of Commons. This Parliament, this one, Mr. Speaker, has asked 4 times to see the documents relating to the firing of 2 scientists from the National Microbiology Lab. Now the agency has been found in contempt of Parliament for failing to hand the documents over. Will the government confirm that they will stop the cover-up today and allow the President of PHAC to table the unredacted documents to this, the People's House?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you know, it's disappointing to see the opposition play games with Canadians' national security. That member knows full well that unredacted documents were provided to the appropriate committee of parliamentarians who have the expertise and clearance to review documents that are sensitive in this nature. Will never put Canadians' national security at risk, Mr. Speaker. And I would really hope the member opposite understands why that's important.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's really important, Mr. Speaker, is that we respect our institutions. In less than an hour, the President of the Public Health Agency should be here in this House to hand over documents regarding the events at the laboratory in Winnipeg. That's an order of this House. An order, not simply a whim. In an hour, we will know whether the Government of Canada respects institutions, whether it respects the will of the House of Commons. Will this government allow the Public Health Agency to table the documents that Canadians want to see to understand what happened in Winnipeg? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the member opposite does not respect institutions, nor does the member opposite respect national security. And don't take it from me, take it from Thomas Junot, the associate professor at University of Ottawa, who said this is a big setback for the parliamentary oversight of intelligence in Canada and more broadly for efforts to improve transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are playing a dangerous game, and they know that.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. What is actually dangerous, Mr. Speaker, is to violate the orders of this House. Perhaps the expert doesn't know that, but the minister should know. The documents requested will be tabled here at the clerk's table, and the clerk will do his duty. He's going to look at the documents, he's going to redact the parts that could be compromising, and he will present the results to the members. That is our work as serious elected officials. Why is this government playing the petty politics with national security by violating the will of the House? The Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, that member opposite knows those unredacted documents have been provided to a committee of parliamentarians that has the appropriate oversight to be able to look at them in a safe way that protects Canadians' national security. But why take it from me? Let's listen to Stephanie Carvin, also a professor at Carleton University. And she said this bulldozer approach to national security is misguided, dangerous, there's that word again, and will result in a less transparent system overall.
L'honorable député de La Prairie.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the EI system is one of the great failures of the pandemic. The program is so ineffective that the federal government had to invent the CERB. If not, millions of families might have ended up in the street. And we see that with workers in the culture sector who are often freelancers. Last week, the government of Quebec wrote to ask that the EI system reform consider the unique status of artists and cultural workers. Will the government collaborate with Quebec to reform EI so that it properly covers people working in the culture sector and freelancers? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the answer is yes. We will keep our promise to modernize the EI system thanks to a historic investment in cooperation with Canadians, employers, and all stakeholders. We will implement what is in the letter from Quebec. We will continue to work with stakeholders and the provinces as well as experts. We will continue to modernize the system in order to ensure that all employees are able to access the program. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't forget that the economic recovery will not help cultural workers this summer because they won't be able to tour or play to full houses this summer. They were some of the first to be laid off, and they will be some of the last to get back to normal after the pandemic. They are falling through the cracks. This is urgent. EI was never there for them. And today, despite the emergency measures, they may suffer due to the decrease in the CRB. This is urgent. What will the government do to help businesses in the cultural sector as well as workers? The Honourable Minister.
Since the beginning of this pandemic, that's exactly the kind of worker we've been trying to help, whether it be through the CERB or through the CRB. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-30 has measures in it that will extend the CRB, that will help out businesses, that will help out employers who want to retain their employees. What we can do as a parliament for this country, Mr. Speaker, is support Bill C-30, get money to workers, get money to businesses so we can all get through this pandemic. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, as the number rises of Indigenous children found in unmarked graves in Canada, this government is continuing to re-traumatize Indigenous families. A human rights tribunal found that the government discriminated against First Nations kids, and instead of making it right, the government keeps fighting these kids in court. This isn't a collaborative process, Mr. Speaker. The government is taking Indigenous kids to court. Since the last time I asked the minister, the government has been in court for another week. So I'll ask again, when will the government stop fighting First Nations kids in court?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think it's important to be clear to all Canadians and Parliament that as part of this process, not a single child has had to testify. There are competing class actions that require us to look at this process as a whole. We are currently in confidential discussions with parties, and those will remain confidential. But let me be clear once again, every single First Nations child that has been discriminated by the broken child welfare system will be fairly, justly, and equitably compensated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend, Black Lives Matter Toronto organized the first national gathering of Black and Indigenous families affected by police violence. Families stood outside the Prime Minister's office demanding action. Anthony Osk, Jamil Francique, Regis Kornilski-Paquet, Rodney Levi, Abdi Rahman Abdi, Aisha Hudson, Andrew Luku, Jermaine Carby, Chantel Krupta, Chantel Moore. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister heed the calls from these families and end police state violence against the bodies of Black, Indigenous, and people of color?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take these calls to action very seriously. We know that the pandemic has impacted all Canadians and disproportionately certain segments. We know that racism, systemic racism exists within our institutions. And that's why in Budget 2021, we see numerous measures to actually address a lot of this important work. It's important that we pass this legislation, and really unfortunate that there are political games being played. We recognize that every department and agency, every minister has a role to play. We take this work seriously, and that's why we're working closely with the Anti-Racism Secretariat. I look forward to working with the member. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
When asked why 97% of Liberal MPs' offices were paying Tom Pitfield, the childhood friend of the Prime Minister, his fellow vacationeer to Billionaire Island, the Liberal member for Scarborough-Guildwood said, "I haven't got a clue. I can't explain it. I vaguely recall once a year we write a check, and it's always been explained that it's within ethical guidelines. So we all kind of sign up for it, and it goes into some oblivion." Yikes. Who in this government told these Liberal MPs to sign taxpayer dollars into oblivion?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I explained earlier, our government believes strongly in the work that all members do for their constituents. It's extremely important work, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians need to know their MPs are advocating for them. They also need to know that the MPs have the ability to keep up with all the files of the people they represent, and the technology that we're discussing here is used by our MPs to help manage their constitution casework, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians are being served well by the MPs through this system.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Well, the government House Leader says it's no big deal, so I guess we better take his word for it. Like those Liberal MPs should take the word from this Prime Minister and this Cabinet, who've been found guilty of multiple ethical law breaches, that there's no ethical misdeeds happening here. Speaker, Tom Pitfield is a close friend of the Prime Minister. These are more Liberal insiders getting ahead on the backs of hard-working Canadians. So, who in the government told these Liberal MPs to cut a check to the Prime Minister's friend, Tom Pitfield?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's a bit rich coming from that member who tried to shut down Parliament not too long ago. The Conservatives are trying to change channels here, but what's happening at this moment is trying to work for Canadians. We're trying to adopt bills that are extremely important, including the budget, Mr. Speaker, with elements that are extremely important for Canadians. And what do the Conservatives do? They block, they filibuster, the waste time of the House. And Mr. Speaker, now it's time for them to stop their games and support our work for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
What's rich, Mr. Speaker, is hearing the government House Leader, who sat on the side of the most corrupt government in this country's history, talk about shutdowns. They prorogued this House during a pandemic, filibustered dozens of hours across multiple committees, mismanaged the House's agenda so badly that they find themselves unable to get what they deem key legislation passed at the end of the parliamentary session. He should be ashamed, just like he should be ashamed of how they're misappropriating taxpayer dollars to subsidize Liberal political operations. So this Liberal minister needs to tell us, through you, Speaker, is he complicit? Was he the one that gave the order for 97% of the Liberal caucus to misappropriate taxpayer dollars?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I think, Mr. Speaker, that member should be ashamed. He got up a couple of weeks ago on a Thursday morning, about around 10 a.m., when people go to work, and said, well, you know what? We've worked enough. We're going to stop and go back home. No way, Mr. Speaker. We're there to work for Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. They want to talk about proroguing. They're the champions, international champions of proroguing, Mr. Speaker, with no reason in their case, Mr. Speaker. So they should stop blocking, and they should work with us for the benefit of all Canadians.
Honorable député de Mégantic. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, it's pretty clear that it's great to be a member of the inner circle of this Liberal Prime Minister. Do you know the name of Tom Pitfield, a long-term friend of the Prime Minister? Well, he's also the owner of a business called Data Science, a business which does IT support for Liberalists, that partisan Liberal tool. And today we learned that 97% of Liberal members, 149 MPs, use their riding budget to pay for data sciences services. Who asked Liberal MPs to pay for the services of the friend of the Prime Minister, the Honourable Minister? Mr. Speaker, I already explained that the technology that is being mentioned here was used by members to manage their riding association tech. That's it, Mr. Speaker. And I find it upsetting that the Conservatives are trying to change the channel because there's something very shameful going on. They are blocking bills that are essential. Many programs' benefits will be ending in 9 days, Mr. Speaker. And if this budget is not adopted, that's what will happen. And these Conservatives are just blocking and blocking. They need to stop doing that and start working with us for the benefit of all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to explain to the government House Leader that this issue is so sensitive that 2 Liberal members said they didn't even know why they were paying data science with parliamentary resources. They said that instead of telling the truth, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals are writing checks to a friend of the PM without even knowing why. Is that really what Liberals are saying? We only learned about these partisan payments to data science recently. Mr. Pitfield, however, has been responsible for the Liberals' digital services since 2015, and he probably will be after the next election. Will the Prime Minister tell us how much money his good friend received from members' offices since 2015? The Honourable Minister. Can my colleague tell me when Conservatives will stop blocking the budget, when they will stop blocking C10, when Conservatives will stop blocking C12 so we can work for the future of our children and our grandchildren, when Conservatives will stop blocking C6, which is about a process that hurts our LGBTQ youth. Will he tell us when the Conservatives stop blocking these progressive bills? When will they start helping us to help all Canadians? The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. There were 183 hours of filibustering on C6 at committee, Mr. Speaker. It's the Liberal government that is unable to handle the agenda of the House. And the member for Malpec confirmed to the Globe and Mail that the Liberal Party has been gathering partisan information from riding associations. He said that members need to be cautious when they use the system to avoid using the information for partisan reasons. To sum up, the Prime Minister has a good friend who was traveling with him on the Aga Khan's Island, a close friend who was managing the partisan Liberal list thanks to public funds from MPs, and the Prime Minister is asking Canadians to believe that no rule has been violated. Who asked members to pay for Mr. Pitfield's services, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, who on the other side is giving the directive to block everything this government is doing right now, Mr. Speaker? Who is telling members to block the money for the wage subsidy, for rent assistance for those who have lost their jobs? Who is telling the Conservatives to filibuster the Environment Bill? Who is telling the opposition to block the cultural sector bill to help people who are suffering in the cultural sector? Who's giving that order? The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, on Thursday, I asked the Minister of Official Languages why she did not want the Charter of the French language to apply to all Quebecers, and her answer says a lot. She said that for the first time in history, the federal government is stepping up to protect the French language. That is quite the admission. I have a suggestion for the Minister. Why doesn't the federal government, for the first time in history, why doesn't the federal government let Quebec determine its own linguistic rules? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm always very happy to answer my colleagues' questions. I'm always very pleased to do so because it enables me to present the government's position. And our position is that we want to protect the French language. We want to protect it. We want to recognize new rights, the right to work in French, to be served in French in federally regulated businesses. I think my colleagues should be pleased Because for years, even decades, it's been 30 years now, the Bloc Québécois has been asking for more protection for French. And that is what this Liberal government is doing. We should work on this together. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in history, the federal government could respect the French language charter. For the first time in history, the federal government could recognize that when it comes to the French language in Quebec, Quebec should be the one making the decisions. For the first time in history, the federal government could step up and protect French by letting Quebec protect French. Will the Minister of Official Languages respect the will of Quebec for the first time in history? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague Shirley has some questions about the very existence of her party in the House of Commons. Because the Bloc Québécois has been asking for more protections for French for decades, that is what we're doing, we're delivering. Of course, the Bloc Québécois is always trying to pick fights with the federal government. It always is looking for reasons to argue in order to be able to move forward with their sovereigntist agenda, because they simply are looking for ways to defend the cause of Quebec independence. But it doesn't work, because what Quebecers want is for us to protect French, but do that within a united Canada. The Quebecers want us to focus on their concerns and create opportunities for them. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, unlike what the Minister would have us believe, it is not true that her bill better protects French in Quebec. It is full of grandfathered-in exemptions and exceptions. There are good things in the bill for minority French language communities. That's great. That was necessary. But for Quebec, it's no Bill 101. The Minister says that she really wants to protect French in Quebec. In that case, can she justify why her party is the only one which refused to support our bill to ensure that federally regulated businesses would be subject to the Charter of the French language? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we see here once again that the Bloc Québécois is just trying to scare people. If my colleague would carefully and attentively read the bill that we tabled, she would know that we are ready to recognize the application of the French language charter to federally regulated businesses that are already registered and any further businesses that might be interested in becoming subject to the charter. And we want to ensure that the right to work or be served in French, we want to ensure that those rights be respected. So we are creating our own federal approach, and that will strengthen French in Quebec and also elsewhere in the country in regions with a large number of French speakers.
Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the government introduces their budget, limited targets, and one of the few measurements was the declaration of 1 million jobs recovered by the end of June on Chart 35. Facts. Between March and May of this year, our economy lost jobs. We have the second highest unemployment rate of all the G7, and inflation is running rampant. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister deliver on his promise of 1 million jobs recovered by the end of June? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to answer the question. With respect, the honourable member seems not to appreciate the difference that our economy is experiencing in a positive way as a result of the measures that we have put in place to support Canadian households and businesses through this pandemic. Yes, in order to protect lives from the threat of COVID-19, provincial governments had put public health measures in place, including in Nova Scotia, which is reporting 0 cases today. The reason that we expect such a profound recovery is because we have supports designed to help businesses. I'm disappointed, however, that the Conservative member and his colleagues are obstructing the proceedings of Parliament to prevent these benefits from reaching businesses and workers. I'm confident that we will meet our target and exceed it in a timely way, so long as we have measures in place that will help continue to support households and businesses through this pandemic.
Before going to the next question, I just want to point out there's a few microphones that keep popping on. I want the honourable members to be careful and make sure that their microphone is on if they're not asking a question. The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, timely. It appears that another promise failed when the government doesn't meet its benchmark of a return of creation of 1 million Canadian jobs by the end of this month. Between March and May, the unemployment rate rose from 7.5 to 8.2%. That's 1.6 million Canadians out of work. Jobs come from growth, and there's a lack of focus on this government on actions that will grow the economy. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us today where did the jobs go and what is the new date on when they're coming back?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, it is disappointing but not surprising to see that the Conservatives take such glee in Canadians who are put out of work in order to protect the lives of their families and neighbors. The reality is, yes, there has been a short-term hit to job numbers because provincial governments have restricted economic activity to save people's lives and preserve the long-term economic outlook for their provinces. The Nova Scotia example is a prime example, Mr. Speaker, who's recently rebounded from a lockdown with 0 cases today. My only wish is that the Conservatives would stop obstructing the benefits that are designed to trigger growth and contribute to what is projected to be a profound...
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you I'm not laughing. Jobs are not being created. The economy is not growing, and we're slipping in our G7 position. Canadians are desperate. The Prime Minister sold this budget as a growth plan, but evidently it's nothing more than a marketing plan towards an election. We cannot talk our way into a better future. My constituents are sick and tired of the lack of deliverables and want action. Enough with the theatrics and the sales pitch budget. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister come forward with specific growth targets and clear timelines by economic sector?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member wants to compare to our G7 counterparts, I would point him to the fact that we have a 64.6 labour force participation rate in Canada compared to 61.6 in the United States. I would point him to the fact that 80.9% of the jobs have returned from peak job losses here compared to 65.9% in the United States. The reality is we are seeing a relatively stronger economic rebound because we had relatively stronger public health measures that would put in place. I would point again to the example of Nova Scotia that did see 22,000 jobs shut down last month, which previously had 100% of the economic activity returned. Today, my province is reporting 0 cases, and we expect that to allow us to accelerate out of this pandemic recession if only the Conservatives would get out of the way and allow important measures that target growth specifically so the economy can come roaring back immediately.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have decided to cut the CRB while thousands of businesses are only slowly starting to reopen and while entire sectors are still under lockdown. The cultural sector and tourism are good examples. What is the government basing these cuts on? Scientific studies? Committee of experts? Maybe they read tea leaves? We want more than just talking points and platitudes. People deserve clear answers. Why are the Liberals deciding to cut the help that people desperately need? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of the pandemic, our government has worked hard to keep Canadians healthy, safe, and supported. Our emergency and recovery income support measures are helping buffer the worst economic impacts and continue to help Canadians put food on the table. To continue supporting workers through this pandemic, we presented a plan in Budget 2021 to extend the Canada Recovery benefits up to 50 weeks and the Canada Recovery caregiving benefit up to 42 weeks. We're also helping Canadians re-enter the labour market by creating 500,000 new training and work opportunities and launching the Canada Recovery hiring benefit. Mr. Speaker, we are doing everything we can. We just need the support of every member in this House to get the support to Canadians that they need.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Well, there it is again, Mr. Speaker. When the government talks about extending the Canada Recovery benefit, what they don't say, and the Canadians need to hear, is that they're cutting the amount of the support by 40%, from $500 a week to $300 a week. So New Democrats have been consistently opposing that cut. I think the government at least owes Canadians the decency to hear it out of the mouth of the minister that they are cutting that benefit even as they extend it by 40%. Will the minister at least just fess up and put it on the record that they're cutting the benefit by 40%?
Well, Minister.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, the CRB is part of a comprehensive set of emergency and recovery measures to support Canadian workers. Through the CRB, Canadians could have access of up to 50 weeks of benefit. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the first 42 weeks at $500, the last 8 weeks at $300, but they also have access to more flexible EI benefits, to have access to the wage subsidy. All these other programs are in jeopardy, Mr. Speaker, if this House doesn't pass C-30. That's what's at stake. Our entire recovery infrastructure is at stake if we don't get together and support C-30. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, in 2007, the Conservative government chose to vote against the adoption of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. In the years since, Indigenous parliamentarians, including Romeo Saganash and I, amongst others, have worked diligently to rectify this mistake, resulting in our government's tabling and passing of C-15. On National Indigenous Peoples Day, could the Minister of Justice please update the House on C-15 and the work ahead to implement UNDRIP?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Sydney, Victoria for his important question on National Indigenous Peoples Day, for his advocacy and his efforts in helping us to get to this momentous landmark. And I would also like to salute and thank his father, Professor Sakish Henderson, for all the work that he did in the development of the Declaration. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples passing in both chambers is an important step on the path towards reconciliation. It is not, however, the last one, Mr. Speaker. The real work begins once the Declaration is adopted. We will continue to work with Indigenous peoples across Canada to support the co-development of an action plan, implementing and achieving the objectives of the Declaration. Mr. Speaker, we're building a better country for all our children and grandchildren.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, a Toronto birthday party that should have been a celebration instead ended in tragedy. A 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an 11-year-old indiscriminately shot, caught in the crossfire. This shocking and outrageous act of gun violence against the precious lives of innocent children is devastating. Violent gun offenses are on the rise, increasingly because of illegal guns. This government has done nothing for 6 years. When will this minister act to protect Canadians and remove illegal guns from our communities?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I share her outrage about this terrible act of gun violence that took place in Toronto, in which innocent children were the victims. Mr. Speaker, that's precisely why we've taken strong action to strengthen gun control, which is a different approach, where the Conservatives have promised the gun lobby that they'll weaken it. Mr. Speaker, we have prohibited a number of weapons designed for killing people, and we've brought forward strong new legislation that will address all of the ways in which criminals gain access to guns. Additionally, we've made significant investments in policing and in communities. And I would urge the member opposite to support those measures, because communities and the police need our help.
Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Carson Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the minister continues to mislead Canadians with that response. Under this government, gang violence continues to terrorize our communities, just like it did in Etobicoke this weekend. In Toronto, there have been over 160 shootings, with dozens injured or killed in the last 6 months alone. The Liberals' failed approach with C-71, the gun ban, the confiscation plans, and C-21 focused on law-abiding, lawful firearm owners rather than illegal firearms and criminals. Instead of deceitful, tired talking points, when will this minister admit their plans are failing and put forward measures that actually protect Canadians?
Full Minister.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. And once again, the Conservatives demonstrate their absolute commitment to weaken gun control and keep their promises to the gun lobby. But in fact, Mr. Speaker, and the member referenced Bill C-71. The Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police deemed Bill C-71 essential to public safety. In addition, we've introduced strong new legislation that addresses all of the ways in which criminals get access to guns through smuggling, through theft, and through criminal diversion. Mr. Speaker, we will strengthen gun control in this country, and we will invest in policing and communities to keep our communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, without the vigilance of the media and the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister would have allowed the Chinese Communist regime access to our embassies around the world by allowing Nuctech, a company controlled by the regime, to install their X-ray machines. Fortunately, we convinced him it was a mistake and he cancelled the contract. But the same company already installed devices at our borders and airports. Now, if this posed a security risk to our embassies, will the Prime Minister understand that this is a risk and take these machines out of our airports and borders? The Honourable Minister.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, let me assure the member opposite that our border security officers remain extremely vigilant with respect to all national security concerns. They work very collaboratively with our national security intelligence agencies and law enforcement, and we take their advice on all procurement decisions. Mr. Speaker, I have been assured that the devices that to which the member references pose no risk to Canadian national security, but we will remain vigilant.
Member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the minister knows that this is not true. This government knowingly installed security-compromised nuke tech equipment at our borders and airports. The Operation Committee's recommendations are clear. Remove the nuke tech equipment from our airports and borders and ban the purchase of tech from Chinese state-owned companies. Now, will this government act on this report to protect Canadians, or will it instead continue to admire the basic Chinese dictatorship?
Honourable Minister.
Again, I want to thank the member for the question because it gives me an opportunity to clarify that I have been assured by our border service officers that the use of this equipment in no way compromises Canadian interests or data, and that the devices are effective for the purposes to which they are used, but they do not pose a significant risk to public safety. But I want to also assure the member that we will continue to be vigilant. As I shared with this House back in December, we are well aware and informed this House of the concerns that we have with respect to any opportunity for foreign interference from any hostile actor.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the military justice process for dealing with sexual misconduct is a farce. As former Supreme Court Justice Maurice Fish has told us, it's a system in which senior officers interfere in order to control the process. He also talks about recommendations that were rejected with comments like, "It would hurt his career," or "Let's give him another chance." In short, it's a system that protects abusers. Justice Fish made 107 recommendations, but unfortunately, the current Minister of the Defense is the one who's supposed to implement them. Mr. Speaker, does anyone even still believe that this will happen? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're absolutely committed to making sure that we create a harassment-free workplace and free of absolute misconduct. And I thank the work that Justice Fish has done. We are accepting all the recommendations. And in fact, we have actually started implementing 36 of the recommendations. And we'll be also working alongside with Madam Justice Arbour on the next steps as well. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, if the government is so determined to change the culture of sexual misconduct in the military, it needs to explain itself. For the past month, the Liberals have been filibustering the Defence Committee to avoid having to reveal the committee's report on sexual misconduct to this House. As we speak, we don't even know if there will be a report in the end. My question is for the Liberal chair of the Defence Committee. When will she stop allowing her committee to block the accountability that victims of sexual misconduct expect? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the work of the committee, they make their own decisions, but I look forward to the recommendations that the members have been working on. I know that our members of the committee are absolutely committed to supporting the survivors, and the antics that the opposition continues to make is to prevent that work. Our government has worked since we formed government and provide support to survivors for the passage of Bill C-77. We know that we have a lot more work to do, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian farmers, producers, and processors are worried about market access to international markets. They are unsure whether current market access that they have right now will continue. They also want to know if they will regain access to markets that have been closed to them. Now, I've met with many stakeholders who are very concerned that this government does not have their back on this. So, Speaker, will the government assure this House that it is actively working to guarantee and open market access for Canadian farmers, producers, and processors?
Honourable Minister.
Thank
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me just repeat, if the member is not aware, that Canada has actually been playing a leadership role since the very beginning of this pandemic, whether it's the World Trade Organization or elsewhere, in order to ensure that we keep our supply chains open and that no country turns inwards, and we keep our rules-based international trading system intact. We will continue to advocate for free trade right across the world, and we will take every action necessary to defend our farmers and all of our exports here in Canada.
Honourable Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, now that Canada is finally starting to catch up to the rest of the developed world on immunization, provinces, territories, and municipalities are beginning to reopen. But Canada's borders are under federal jurisdiction, and there's still no clear plan for permanent, safe reopening. Thousands of small businesses are dependent on tourism, and they are being left behind by this federal government. Once again, Mr. Speaker, when will this government finally table a comprehensive, detailed reopening plan?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, first, let me say, Mr. Speaker, over 36.3 million doses of vaccines have been shipped and 32.2 million doses administered. We are indeed making progress, Mr. Speaker. And I will say this, today there's good news for fully vaccinated Canadian travelers and others with right of entry to Canada. Because of their full vaccination status, they will be able to avoid some measures of quarantine, including the obligation to stay in a hotel. We'll always use science and evidence, Mr. Speaker, to guide our next steps on the border. And we thank Canadians for stepping up and getting vaccinated in such incredible numbers.
Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More than 265,000 jobs were lost in the past 2 months. In April, the number of Canadians receiving regular employment insurance was up nearly 10% overall, but up more than 22% for women. Mr. Speaker, women in South Surrey White Rock who had jobs don't want EI, they want to work. Does the Prime Minister accept any responsibility for these job losses?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. When she refers to job losses in the past couple of months, she ignores the fact that after the previous wave, we actually saw more than 560,000 jobs created. When she's talking about the specific measures that are designed to help women take part in this economic rebound, I will acknowledge that women have disproportionately been impacted. That is specifically why we have made great game-changing investments in childcare to allow more women to enter the workforce. It's why we've made new investments to encourage women entrepreneurship to help kickstart economic growth. It's why we're going to continue to put supports in place that have undergone a gender-based analysis so we can understand the impact of our investments and how they impact women and men differently. With respect to the honourable member, the best thing she can do if she wants to support women's participation in this recovery is to get out of the way, stop obstructing Bill C-30 so these supports can reach the people who need them.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, during the pandemic, it's become increasingly clear how important it is to have a safe and affordable home. I've heard from constituents in my riding that affordable housing is an urgent priority. Whether you're a young student, a new family, or a senior, affordable housing is integral to one's well-being and ability to achieve one's goals. Could the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development please inform this House of the work that's being done to make affordable housing a reality?
Honourable Ministre.
Le gouvernement fédéral.
The federal government is committed to helping Quebecers and Canadians find a safe and affordable home. Since 2015, our government has invested over $4 billion in housing in Quebec. On June 3rd, we announced more than $20 million in federal support for affordable student housing in Montreal. We will continue to work tirelessly on behalf of Canadians and Quebecers.
Merci.
The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans Pacific Salmon Strategy is nothing but more empty promises.
This Liberal government has been in power for 6 years, and once again they have failed to listen to our BC fishers to develop and implement an effective plan to conserve and restore Pacific salmon. We don't need any more studies. We don't need any more stall tactics. We have experts on the water that know what needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. When is the minister going to start listening to BC anglers and get to work to restore our BC public fishery? When?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question, and I actually agree with him. We absolutely have expertise on the West Coast with regards to the wild Pacific salmon, the declines that we're seeing. That's why we're developing in collaboration with those organizations, communities, with First Nations, and with British Columbia, the province of British Columbia, the Pacific Salmon Strategy. This government is very proud of the fact that we're investing $647 million in that strategy. Mr. Speaker, we know we have to do everything we possibly can to restore wild Pacific salmon.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Nézet-Chemin-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, with the Pierre-Laporte Bridge closing in a few days, the construction of the third link will become more important than ever for maintaining the connection between Quebec City and Lévis. So when will the Liberals support this third link and help support our regions and motorists? Will the Liberals finally give their support to this project, which is so essential to regional urban mobility? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Comme vous savez, nous faisons des...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, we're making historic investments in Quebec. I was with the member for Quebec and with the Quebec Premier when we made an announcement last week. The third link is an important project, and we're always interested to assess the projects that are proposed, and we will continue to work on it.
Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, for the 2020 parent and grandparent sponsorship application term, 209,174 applications were submitted. To date, 0 applications have been processed. Even worse, this current processing time is estimated to be 28 months. This Liberal-made backlog mess is hurting young families, minorities, and our economy while they pile on more platitudes and election promises. When is this government going to fix their failed application system?
The Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has an exceptional track record of meeting our immigration goals. We welcomed tens of thousands of temporary workers to keep our economy going, adding $100 million to protect their rights. We've reunited tens of thousands of families, showing compassion where we can, and we've created new pathways for refugees, demonstrating global leadership on human rights. Mr. Speaker, even in the face of the pandemic, we have a plan that shows how immigration creates jobs and growth, and that is in stark contrast to the years of failures under the last Conservative government.
Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nova Scotians have been forever impacted by gun violence. Many constituents here in Cumberland Colchester, particularly women, have told me that they support fully implementing Bill C-71, which addresses domestic violence with red flag legislation through lifetime background checks, helps law enforcement trace firearms, and addresses the sale of firearms to those without a license. Meanwhile, worryingly, the Conservative leader is promising to weaken background checks, remove support for our police, and return military firearms to the streets. Can the Minister of Public Safety please reassure women and other concerned citizens by updating us on measures to bring...
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the member from Cumberland Colchester for her very important question. And I most certainly share her concern over Conservative promises to weaken gun control. I want to assure this House that our government is listening to all those concerned with gun violence, and we are responding to the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, who deemed Bill C-71 essential to public safety. Earlier today, we tabled regulations that will strengthen license verification and record keeping in Canada. These measures will enable strong action to prevent the sale of firearms to those not legally authorized to possess them, and they will provide enhanced support to law enforcement to hold criminals to account. Together, Mr. Speaker, these measures will prioritize public safety and empower effective police work.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, the border between the United States and Canada has been closed for the past 16 months due to the COVID pandemic and following the science to protect public health. But now, with Canadians Americans being fully vaccinated, it's time to follow the science and once again begin the reopening for families who have been separated for a long time and for businesses who are struggling to survive. No more half measures and inadequate responses. People have sacrificed and suffered enough. When will this government follow the science and open the border to Canadians and Americans who are fully vaccinated? Canadians need a clear plan. When will they do it?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly on this side of the House what we've been doing. We've been following the science and the evidence. We've been working so hard to make sure that the sacrifices that Canadians have made over the past year and a half are not wasted. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to take prudent measures, to relax measures on the border as based on science and evidence. And today is a good day, Mr. Speaker. Starting July 5th, fully vaccinated travelers who are currently permitted to enter Canada will not be subject to existing quarantine requirements. Mr. Speaker, we can see the finish line. Let's get there together.
Honourable Member for Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a recent report by the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group says that a secretive division of the CRA is unfairly targeting Muslim charities with audits amounting to discrimination. The report found that 75% of the charities audited and whose status was revoked were Muslim charities, despite them representing only 0.47% of the overall sector. Can the minister explain what is being done to stop this harassment? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government will continue to work to end discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. The CRA monitors the operations of registered charities and ensures compliance through a balanced program of client service, education, and responsible enforcement, including audits to protect the integrity of the charitable sector. The CRA does not select registered charities for audit based on any particular faith or denomination. The Minister of National Revenue does not instruct the CRA to begin audits, nor does the Minister intervene in audits underway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's all the time we have for question period today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons.
That is all the time we have for question period today. We have a point of order. The Honourable Member for Ballet-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the interpreter would like to note that the sound quality does not allow for interpretation at this time.
Que cette Chambre, reconnaissant l'importance de la vérité historique dans le processus de guérison des familles et des nations éplorées, exige que le gouvernement déploie au bénéfice...
Je m'excuse.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting the Honourable Member. We have a problem with the interpretation. And another point of order. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, like everyone knows, when you do speak for motions in the House, you always have to be equipped correctly. We understand that the leader of the bloc does not have the necessary equipment. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, I think that all the parties know what the bloc of the leader would like to say, and I would ask for consent to be able to continue. All those who are opposed to the Honourable Member proposing a motion, please say no.
No. The translation. Sorry, I'm asking for consent for the motion that the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent just put forward. Oui, l'honorable député.
Yes, the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent.
I think we all recognize that the member from Chambly has not the setup correctly to address the House of Commons. But we also know what he wants to talk about today. So what I would suggest to my colleague from Chambly is to make, first of all, this in French, and after that, if he can, to translate it to be sure that everybody, every member, will have access in both official languages of his proposition of the day.
We have a problem with the interpretation because the member is not properly equipped. Can the Honourable Member for Ballet-Chambly translate? I'm not... The interpreter regrets, but we cannot hear the member correctly. You do not have the necessary equipment to speak at the House. That is the problem.
30 seconds.
Mais il est possible de faire autre chose entre-temps. J'essaie de trouver de quoi. Ce que j'ai pas l'air de fonctionner.
It's muffled. So how do we deal with this? Or, excuse me. Si je peux à l'ordre, si je peux.
Order, please. May I have your attention, please? Apparently, the problem is that we can understand barely what the member is saying, but it is not clear enough for the interpreters. What was proposed is that the member from Belley-Chambly start in one language, official language, and then say the same thing in the other official language so that everyone can understand what he is saying. Does everyone agree with that? Yes. So we're going to move forward like that. The honourable member for Belley-Chambly, he will begin in the language of his choice and then repeat the same thing in the other official language. Thank you.
OK. D'abord, est-ce que vous m'entendez mieux parce que j'ai un équipement maintenant?
Encore 100%, mais on peut vous...
We can't hear you entirely, but we can hear you.
Monsieur le Président, je suis à la Maison amérindienne de Mont-Saint-Hilaire. Il y a eu consultation entre les partis et je pense que vous constaterez qu'il y a consentement unanime à l'égard de la motion suivante. Que cette Chambre, reconnaissant l'importance de la vérité historique dans le processus de guérison des familles et des nations éplorées, exige que le gouvernement déploie au bénéfice des communautés autochtones les ressources financières nécessaires à la réalisation de tous les appels de la Commission de vérité et réconciliation afin que les communautés autochtones puissent disposer des moyens techniques et scientifiques et de la maîtrise d'œuvre nécessaires à l'identification des sites, à la mise en place des registres, ainsi qu'à la recherche historique et à la commémoration des victimes. Que cette Chambre demande au gouvernement, en consultation avec les communautés autochtones affectées, qu'il place les informations nouvelles qui seront recueillies dans le but de retrouver tous les enfants disparus sous l'égide du Centre national de vérité et réconciliation, le tout sous l'autorité des peuples autochtones. Que cette Chambre, reconnaissant qu'Ottawa est situé sur le territoire traditionnel du peuple algonquin et agissant en conséquence, affirme qu'il est urgent que l'appel à l'action numéro 82 de la Commission de vérité et réconciliation prévoyant la construction d'un monument national sur les pensionnats soit érigé à Ottawa et réitère qu'il est essentiel que les organisations nationales autochtones reconnues soient partie prenante du processus comme il se doit. Et enfin, que cette Chambre demande au gouvernement fédéral qu'il oblige toutes les communautés religieuses qui ont participé au système de pensionnat à donner accès à leurs archives pertinentes aux chercheurs, aux communautés autochtones, aux survivants et à leurs familles. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Maintenant, est-ce que vous pouvez le...
Now, could the honourable member please repeat that statement in English as decided by the House? Because the interpretation is not working, we want to make sure everyone understands exactly what was proposed.
Oui, je l'ouvre à l'instant, Monsieur le Président. Mr. Speaker, there has been consultation between the parties, and I think you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That this House, recognizing the importance of historical truth in the process of healing grieving families and nations, insists that the government deploy for the benefit of Indigenous communities the financial resources necessary to carry out every calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, in order that Indigenous communities can have the technical and scientific means and the project management necessary for the identification of sites, the establishment of registers, as well as for historical research and the commemoration of the victims. that this House ask the government, in consultation with affected Indigenous communities, to place the new informations that will be collected for the purpose of finding all the missing children under the aegis of the National Truth and Reconciliation Center, all under the authority of the Indigenous people. That this House, recognizing that Ottawa is located on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people and acting accordingly, affirm that it is urgent that the call to action number 82 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission provide for the construction of a national monument on residential schools be erected in Ottawa, and reiterate that it is essential that all recognized national Indigenous organizations be involved in the process as it should. And finally, that this House asks the federal government to push all religious communities that participated in the residential school system to give access to their relevant archives to researchers and to Aboriginal communities and to survivors and their family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those who are opposed to the honourable member moving the motion, please say nay. Okay.
In terms of the motion, all those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried.
I would like to take this opportunity to remind everyone
that if they're going to do something in a different location than they're used to, please make sure that the equipment is in hand and tested previously. It'll just make things work so much smoother, and it'll make things a lot easier.
The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent is rising in a point of order. On this point, Mr. Speaker, I want to be very clear so that no one misunderstands what I'm saying. We have rules to follow. Yes, there are technical issues, but there's also the location. I understand full well what led the leader of the bloc to have done this. It's the National Indigenous Day, and I understand that very well. And it asks us all to think, well, his proposition motion was adopted unanimously because he read it in both official languages. And I think I would like to make a recommendation so that either we're in the House or in our parliamentary offices or in our riding offices. And if we have to be outside of those three places, I believe, and we'd have to look at the proposals we made together, inform the House before to make sure that everything is correct and that for today we understand very well. And we can move motions that are symbolic like today, but I think we have to look at what happens when we're speaking at a location that is outside of the House of Commons. I would like to thank the honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. He's making a very good point. And it's something I'd like to remind everyone that when you do speak, you're in this House. It is a neutral location without... We have to be a symbolic... Sometimes there are things that we don't realize, but it's very important for us to keep this location as neutral as possible. Thank you. I'd like to thank the honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent for that reminder. As it is 3:22, pursuant to standing order adopted on Thursday, June 17th, it is my duty to ask the Sergeant at Arms to admit Mr. Ian Stewart,
Public Health Agency of Canada, to appear at the bar of the House. Order. À l'ordre. Mr. Stewart, you are attending at the bar of the House on behalf of the Public Health Agency of Canada for failure to comply with the